It is just a great day today here. At least it's sunny and lovely. So I hope that your weather is good wherever you are. And we will be going through some wonderful things today. And so I wanted to just go ahead and share my screen with you. So thank you all for being here. We're going to go through some housekeeping things. Gretchen's going to be doing that. We'll have some introductions. We'll have, of course, our great presenter for today. We'll have some Q&A afterwards and some announcements after that. So again, I'm Angela Williamson, Volunteer and Community Relations Specialist at the Delmarva Peninsula, the Blood Bank. And I'm also a leader of the Alive Healthcare Community of Practice, co-leader of the local Delaware Association of Volunteer Administrators, and a CVA. I encourage you to get involved with your local AVA association if you're not already, and join one of those leadership roles. You're going to be able to gain great knowledge and experience and networking experience. So I'm really, really excited about this topic, and I can't wait to hear our speaker, Karen. I don't know about you, but I did not become a volunteer manager leader because I'm a natural strategist, or at least I'm not aware that I'm a strategist at any point. So I'm grateful for this experience and of the work that Karen has put into this presentation for us. Karen is a president and founder of Caber Communications, where she partners with clients all across all sectors, developing strategic initiatives and cultivating vibrant teams that increase the visibility, enrich cultures, and boost impact. Her tailored volunteer and ambassador experiences emphasize effective communication, increased participation for associations, nonprofits, corporations, alumni, and community organizations, educational institutions, executive boards, and foundations. Karen holds a master's degree from the University of Colorado at Boulder and is certified, yay, in volunteer administration, a CVA. Karen will empower us all to put our people first. And we will also get to see her again in January. So mark your dates there. The second session will be Leadership Strategies, Building a Compelling Case for Your Volunteer Program, Part 2, January 13th. And Karen, we really look forward to your thoughts.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen here. And let's get it going. Okay, can you see that all right?
Looks great.
Okay, great. All right, well then we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Angela, first of all, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Thank you also, Gretchen, for facilitating for us today, and Alive for hosting this webinar. I'd also like to extend a big thank you to all of you for joining us today. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you. We have a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to jump right in. COVID has affected us in so many ways, and it has brought communication to the forefront more than ever before. You know, COVID is still affecting us and our organizations and our people, personally and professionally. And so boosting those connections that we have and strengthening those relationships are now much more important. We need to do this for several reasons, one of which is because there's a barrier between us. There's a screen between you and me. We're not in the same room. And so we really need to make sure that we are going the extra mile as we look at building out our relationships. Today, what we're going to do is we'll be looking at the soft skills. And these are the interpersonal skills, the people skills that come along with communication. These are skills that can help you get noticed. Indeed, the job site Indeed recently did a survey of 1,000 hiring managers, and they found that the top 5 attributes of top performers were problem solving, effective communication, being a self-starter, drive, and adaptability and flexibility. Soft skills, important things, and we use them all the time. You know, if you think about it, we use soft skills when we have a conversation, when we write a memo, when we are sitting on a team. Soft skills help us collaborate. So we're going to kick it off with a poll. And what I'd like to do is, as Gretchen is pulling up the poll for us, I'll explain to you how it works. Please answer the question, what type of organization do you work for? We've got several choices for you. And we also have other, if none of these categories fit. Totally fine. I will ask you, if you do choose other in the spirit of collaboration, please feel free to use the chat function. Let us know where you work. I think it's always a good idea to know who is in the room with you, and this is a great way to do it. Gretchen, how are we doing?
We have great voter turnout, 85.
Yay!
Keep that open for just a moment more, and then I'll end the poll and show it on the screen for a moment.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. As I was saying, it's important to know who's in the room with you, even if we're in a virtual room. And I always encourage everyone to meet and greet as much as possible. I personally, whenever I go literally anywhere, I'm always networking. I'm always looking to see who I can meet, because you never know where those connections are going to lead. Okay, so our results. The majority, 46%, work for a nonprofit. I can't say that I'm surprised, given that nonprofits are the backbones of our organizations. We have 31% of our people are in government, and we've got also people from academia and from other. Gretchen, do we know what the other categories are?
Sure do. He put a presenter and blogger and active in his local association board.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for answering. I'm going to close that out. And I'd like to do one more quick poll, and this one's actually a hypothetical to get us into what we're talking about. So, as Gretchen pulls up the poll, let me explain. You've been asked to pitch your volunteer program to the board. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel? 5 being, I am supremely confident, Karen, I can ace this, to 1 being, I'm terrified, I don't know if I can do this. Okay, hang on.
My next poll doesn't want to come up, so keep talking.
Okay, well then I tell you what, why don't we use the chat function? Sorry, Gretchen, it's just a little extra work. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you can answer this, let us know. I'm just trying to take a pulse here to figure out where we are at in terms of how we feel advocating for our program. You know, not only are we advocating for our program, but at the same time, we are putting ourselves out there as well. And, you know, there's 2 key questions that we want to be thinking about. Who are we going to communicate to? Who else do we need to let know about all the great things that our program and our teams are doing? And also, what information is important? So, Gretchen, how are we doing with our responses to this?
We're doing great. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results.
Okay. Ah, yay, this is great. I am so excited to see that we are all in the confident range. Some of us are comfortable, some of us are more confident, and some of us are supremely confident. This is fantastic. What we're going to do today, I'm going to close out this poll, okay? What we're going to do today is we are going to move forward and talk about how we can confidently leverage communication and position yourself as a sought-after collaborator, while at the same time professionally and successfully promoting your people and your program, right? So we'll be looking today at creating the infrastructure to do that. In other words, building out those relationships with stakeholders and effectively communicating with leadership. To do this, we're going to take a look at a framework, the framework of the team, but we'll be focusing on the individual, that would be you, right? And we'll be looking at who you're trying to reach, what you're trying to say, and we'll cover some different ways to help you boost collaboration and also establish your presence. As Angela mentioned in session 2 of our series, that's when we're going to focus on the advocacy itself. So we'll talk about how you can best position your program when you make your pitch, and addressing any concerns and demonstrating really the full worth of your program. Okay, so where do we begin? Well, best practices of communication indicate that we always begin with our audience. So we want to think about this. Who are you trying to reach? Who are your stakeholders? What are their roles? What information do they already know about what you do, about what your teams do, what your program does, and your volunteers do, and what information don't they know? This is very important because we want to make sure that they get the full picture, okay? And so we want to do this. And in order to find out, we have to know who our stakeholders are. So I have another poll, and then this is going to be the last one for a while. But think about this, and if you can answer, please, who are your stakeholders? You can choose any answers that you like. And also at the same time, I will mention that this is not a one-size-fits-all. Every organization is different. Every volunteer program is different based on mission, based on size, based on structure. And so, you know, we're not comparing here, and your set of key stakeholders may be different than mine. That's okay. We just need to know who our key stakeholders are, why they're important, and how we should be speaking to them. How are we doing, Gretchen?
Doing well. Going, gone. I'm going to go ahead and share our results.
Wow, okay. Fabulous. Of course, we are all communicating with our volunteers, colleagues and staff, and donors. Love that we are reaching out to donors. Donors are so important, especially right now. You know, we all know that robust giving and volunteerism are intricately linked. So this is fantastic. Colleagues and staff, it's great. 50% of us are keeping them in the loop as well. Gretchen, we had a third of our answers said other. Who else are our stakeholders? Did anybody let us know?
Yes, one is fellow board members and the other is clients.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned, your stakeholders may be different than someone else's, but that doesn't make them any less important. All of our stakeholders are critical. So let's think about this. Your colleagues, your boss, your leaders, what do they all have in common? Well, for starters, they're all people. They're people like you, they're people like me. And right now, of course, they are dealing with the fallout from COVID-19, right? They're dealing with possibly healthcare issues, schooling issues, social distancing, right? All the same things that we are, childcare maybe. At the same time, we also have larger picture issues such as social unrest. We have political turmoil, not to mention changing climate and weather patterns. There's a lot happening in the world right now. And it doesn't just affect our volunteers. It doesn't just affect us. It also affects our leaders. We always need to remember what I call the humanity factor. And that is the fact that our leaders are people too. So we know how we are similar. How are these different folks, you know, your colleagues, your boss, your leaders, how are they different? Well, they're different because they each have a different role. And those roles mean that they have a different relationship with you. So leaders, for example, how do our leaders think? Our leaders are strategists. Our leaders step back and they take that big picture eagle's eye view of things, right? Our leaders look at, they're always looking ahead, right? So they look at where we were, where we are, and where we want to go. What is our direction? Leaders are focused on our mission and getting us to that next point, right? Leaders always think the big picture. That doesn't mean that they're involved in the day-to-day tactical pieces of getting the job done. That's where we come in. So, you know, there's a difference there, but just because you may be focusing on the day-to-day and your volunteers and your program and serving your clients doesn't mean that you shouldn't be thinking of the bigger picture as well. Very, very important that we do that. And so to do that, we step back and we ask ourselves a couple questions. What are the pain points in the organization? In other words, what's happening? What are the stressors? Where do we need support? Where do we need to make change, right? What's happening in the outside world that's affecting us? All kinds of things. What value do I bring? What do I, as an individual, bring to the table? And what about my team? How can my team better support, how can my volunteers better support our organization? Important questions that we want to ask. At the same time that we're thinking about these questions, we want to also think about how we may be able to affect some change here, right? How can we support strategic initiatives? How can we continue to support the mission even more than we are? What are the opportunities for collaboration? So lots of big picture thinking going on here. And at the same time, because we're talking about leadership, we need to make sure that we are speaking the language of leadership. And what does this mean? Well, think about leaders. Leaders have a lot on their plates. They're very busy. Leaders, how do they speak? Leaders speak in brief, concise terms. Leaders think about the we. I call it the colloquial we. They use the term we. It's not I did this. It's we achieved our third quarter goals, right? It's we. And leaders recognize and acknowledge their people. Leaders do the things that you do with your volunteers because you are a leader of your volunteers, right? So they recognize, they acknowledge, they're genuine, they're authentic. They also ask questions. They ask questions of you and they expect to be asked questions. So they're prepared to respond to the questions. At the same time, our leaders are focused on the mission, right? Focused on the mission, outcomes, and also on our core values. So they're always linking to those outcomes, focusing on the mission, and emphasizing those core values. So we've kind of talked a bit about leadership, but we're not in the room yet, okay? So how do we get there? Well, in order to get there, we need to boost our visibility. We need to make sure that people are understanding everything that you and your team are bringing to the table. So basically what we're talking about is doing a little PR for your team, and that's not a bad thing, okay? I'm not suggesting that visibility is aggressively selling. I'm not suggesting that visibility is bragging. Visibility is simply letting people know the capabilities of your team. Visibility it's a beautiful thing. And it's important because as you put yourself out there, as you put your program out there, then you are better able to serve your organizations. So how do you boost your visibility? Well, we can do this in several different ways. We have internal ways that we're going to look at, and then we'll talk about the external. So internally, how can you build your presence, right? Well, first of all, you can engage. Engage with your colleagues, engage with your leadership. How do you do that? Raise your hand, jump into an assignment. If you see something that needs to get done and you think that you and or your team can help do that with your volunteers, let them know. It's one thing to wait to be asked. It's another to see something that needs to be addressed and to jump right in and say, hey, I'm happy to help, okay? Take credit for your work. Now, I talked about leaders and how leaders recognize and acknowledge their people, which they do, but at the same time, if you do something stellar, you should get credit for that. Some people prefer to say, well, I didn't do that. But if you did something, absolutely, it's okay to take credit for it. And let's not forget mentorship. Alive has a wonderful mentorship program. And if you haven't looked at it, you really should. Mentorship is so important on so many levels. And mentorship is two-way, right? I have mentors that I've had actually since the beginning of my career, some of whom I still keep in touch with on a regular basis. When you mentor somebody, on the flip side, you are fostering a teammate, you're fostering a younger colleague, right? We're also helping carry on the future of our profession. Mentoring is so valuable in so many ways. It's also a great way to build out your leadership skills, and leaders support, leaders mentor. So this is something that leaders look for. On the flip side of all of that, let's talk about external. And here is where you start to own it and you can take your show on the road. And by that, I mean, think about it. As Angela mentioned, Alive has a host of opportunities for you to engage. Get involved, join a volunteer team, step up and network with other people, take on additional roles. I know you're busy. I'm not asking you to overload your plate, but at the same time, if you want to build out your presence, this is an excellent way to do it. It's also a great way to keep abreast of the advances in our profession. At the same time, what else can you do externally? Well, you can speak at a conference. You can speak at the chamber, speak at Rotary. Any kind of public speaking is a great way to gain some visibility. And, if you're not sure about public speaking, you might check out Toastmasters. That's a great way to, in a very safe space, start practicing those skills. How else can you boost your visibility? Well, how about your social presence? How about LinkedIn? Build out your LinkedIn profile if you haven't, and really start connecting on LinkedIn, start posting, right? Same thing with social media. You have preferred channels that you can use through your organizations. So check with your marketing communication folks and maybe write a blog piece. Spotlight your volunteers and post it on social media if that's okay. So lots of different ways that you can do this. All of this is a way to get yourself noticed. And this is what we are looking to do. Okay, when you get yourself noticed, you're showing your value, right? And you need to show your value not just externally by building out that external presence, but also internally. Lead your teams, right? This is what you do on a daily basis. When you lead your team, not only do you lead your people, but we need to make sure that we have the right type of information to carry forward and to bring to our leaders. How do we do that? When we are advocating for a program, what do we need? We need information about our program, right? We need statistics. We need data. Data is so important because data defends your program. So track your results. Figure out what information you want to be sharing and make sure you are tracking that. If you're not regularly tracking it, start now and move forward with it. But so important. When you can put data around something that you are presenting, it really helps. That quantification helps to educate your audience. And if you think about it, if you are presenting, say, to leaders, how do they think? They think in terms of business. They think in terms of the bigger picture of the organization, the structure, the bottom line, right? So we need to make sure we are speaking in that language as well. Obviously, you share your successes. You're doing that, but don't be afraid to let folks in meetings know how things are going with your team as well. Spotlight a particular volunteer and really think about what you can share to really illustrate all the great things that are happening with your people and your program. And also you want to think beyond just your program. And by this, I mean, think about what's happening in that bigger, wider world that we've mentioned, right? We talked about COVID-19 and all the other things that are happening. These are all important. Why are they important to stay on top of? Because they can impact you. They can impact your volunteers. They can impact your organization. And as strategists, we always want to be thinking about all of these factors as we are pulling together our programs. Okay, so we've talked about staying on top of our field as well for the very same reason. At the same time that we are doing all this, we want to be sure that our voices get heard. And what does this mean? How do you get your voice heard? Well, you can do this in a lot of different ways. How about preparing a report for leadership? Okay, now you may not get to read that report out on your program, but that's okay. Sit down with whoever is taking the report to the meeting and say, hey, here's what my volunteers are doing. Here's what the successes we've had. Here's where we started. Here's how many clients served, etc. Share the outputs, share the outcomes, and make sure they understand everything that you would like to get across. Then they'll take it to the meeting afterwards, follow up. Check in with them and say, hey, how did it go? What did they say? Right? Again, it's another way of helping yourself become visible, of getting your voice heard if you are not able to actually be at that table. Totally okay. You can also think about making a pitch for your volunteers at maybe the beginning of a meeting or the end of a meeting. Just say, hey, don't forget, I've got volunteers, skills-based volunteers who would be more than happy to step up and help in this particular area. So lots of ways that you can do this. And, you know, it's important to strategically think about how you can get your voice out there. So let's take a pulse check. How are you currently piping up? Okay, I gave you some suggestions here, some ways that you might be communicating and letting people know, right? Are we having those informal conversations? We should be doing a lot of this, especially because we are so Zoom based right now with our remote teams and our hybrid teams, using emails. Are we doing formal presentations, right? Creating slide decks. How about blogging, posting, all sorts of different ways that we can get our voices heard. How are we doing, Gretchen?
Doing well. Looks like we're almost at our voting max, so I'll go ahead and end the poll now.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. So 71% of us are using informal conversation. We are having those chats. 64% of us are using emails, and 43% of us, close to half, are doing formal presentations. Wow, that's a lot. And that is fantastic. Fantastic. I'm heartened to see that almost a third of us are blogging or posting. This is really wonderful. And I do see, Gretchen, that some of us chose other. Did anyone drop anything in the chat and let us know?
Yes, I'm creating content about the new volunteer program for the employee newsletter.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, with employee volunteers, there is so much that you can talk about. And using that newsletter is a great way to do it. Great job. Okay, so something that I want to touch on here is culture. And the culture of a team is really the dynamic. It's the dynamic between people. It's how we communicate with each other, how we interact, how we collaborate, right? And culture for a team, we can have a couple different kinds. We can have strong cultures, which is obviously the ideal. And we can have cultures that aren't so strong. So a strong culture is collaborative. This is where your people are comfortable brainstorming. They bring their ideas and suggestions to the table. They don't hesitate to share. They support each other. They step in and they help each other out. They check in with each other, see how things are going. It's a very, very functional team, and a lot gets done. On the other side, we have a weak culture, and a weak team culture is usually permission driven. And by that, I mean, people feel as if they have to ask permission before they can take any action. This is a challenge because if you always have to ask permission, number one, you feel as if you don't have ownership. You feel as if you're not empowered. And there's always a time lag because you have to ask for permission and wait for the permission before you can even get started. So these types of teams are noted for poor communication and trust levels, because nobody really knows what to do. Nobody knows what's going on, and the team members feel as if their leader doesn't trust them to, make some headway here. So when you have this, you usually have a micromanager at the helm. These are not productive teams, and they're very frustrating to be on. So we want to make sure that we always have positive team culture and collaboration on our teams. That being said, we need to figure out where we fit in, right? Where do we fit into the bigger picture of the team? Not just what I bring to the table, but how can I work with my colleagues? What are their roles? What are they doing? And how can I support them? How can we work on parallel tracks? How can we team together, two of us, to really push this thing forward? So lots of different ways that you can fit in on the team. Again, fitting in on the team is also not just what you do, but fitting in with that team culture. We want to make sure you're comfortable. We want to make sure everybody on the team is comfortable in the environment. And again, I would caution, because we are so many of us are remote right now, keeping that culture Thriving just takes sometimes a little bit more, because we have the barrier of not being able to be in the room with each other. So a lot of the small talk that we used to be able to do, say in the break room or on the way into the building, where you'd see someone and say, hey, how was your weekend? We don't have those options anymore. And so we need to make sure that we're checking in. We need to make sure that we have as many visual Zoom calls as we can. And I know we have Zoom fatigue, so we want to parse it out and make sure that the calls are manageable time-wise, and also, you know, for people so that they have a chance to have a break too. When we collaborate, okay, think about a cross-functional team. Excuse me one sec. Okay, sorry about that. So when we collaborate, and let's talk about a cross-functional team. So you're sitting on a team and you have people from all across your organization. So what do we need to do? We need to bring full attention, obviously, to the table. We need to bring our leadership skills to the table and our collaborative skills. So what do I mean? Well, here's where you check in. Go around the table, check in with everyone, say, how can we help you? How can my team help you? How can I help you? Right? We want to make sure, again, that we've got those comfortable relationships going on, and that we are all understanding of the culture. If we have an open team culture, that means we have comfortable dialogue and we are comfortable having these conversations and also voicing our opinions, getting feedback, and asking questions. So, so important to promoting a positive team. Doesn't mean conflict doesn't arise, right? And we all know about conflict. As volunteer engagement professionals, you deal with conflict on a regular basis. So think about that. When conflict rears its ugly head, how do we deal with it? How do we address this? There's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And we want to make sure that we are addressing both sides of the conflict and that we are helping people work towards a comfortable resolution. Conflict is not necessarily positive, but it doesn't have to destroy a team. So let's talk about that team. Now we're at the table of the meeting, right? So we're having a meeting with our team, and we really want to maximize our time. We want to maximize efficiency, and we want to go above and beyond the bar that has been set for us. So what do? Well, the first thing that you should do when you enter the room is actually take a read on the room. And by that, what I mean is literally look at the people in the room with you. In a physical room, obviously you can look next to you, see who's there. In a remote room, we can look on screen and see who's there with us. We want to do this. We want to look at how people are dressed, how people are communicating with each other. Let's say you're brand new to a team. This is your first day with this team. When you come in and you read the room, you will get a feel. Is there casual banter before we start, or are we just brass tacks and get down to business? Nothing right or wrong about either way, but a very different approach. And we want to make sure that we fit in with the culture of the team. So we want to make sure we understand what's going on. At the same time, we need to engage. We need to participate in conversation. Don't hesitate to ask questions. You know, I always say, if you have a question, someone else in the room probably has the same question. They just may be hesitant to ask it. So in my mind, no question is a bad question. They're all good. At the same time, we're demonstrating those leadership qualities that we talked about, right? Promoting our people, recognizing our people, using the we. We are on a team together. And also listening. Listening is probably one of the most underused communication skills that we have. And listening is critical. It's critical to the success of a team. It's critical to open dialogue. It's critical to your relationships with your boss, your colleagues, with leadership. It's critical in your personal life as well, right? We need to listen, and we don't always stop to listen. There's a few different ways that we can do this. One of the things that we need to do is listen not just with our ears, but in other ways. How else can we listen? Well, how about body language? Body language speaks volumes, right? If I cross my arms and look at you like this with a frown while you're speaking, you might be thinking to yourself, Karen does not look happy. Karen doesn't like what I'm saying. You take it to the next level, which is Karen doesn't like me, when that's actually probably not the case. If I am listening to you and my body position is much more open, my arms are open, my palms may be reaching up towards the ceiling a little bit, you know, in openness, I'm nodding, I'm smiling, I'm agreeing with what you're saying, you're going to feel a lot different. Two different ways of listening to the same message, two very different reactions on the part of the sender. Okay, as the receiver of that message, I felt the same way. But you took it to mean, in the one case, that I wasn't happy, and the other, that I was, and that I was agreeing. So body language speaks volumes. And at the same time, we want to be sure that we check our emotions. I always say, leave your emotions at the door. Let's talk about what we're talking about, and then think how we feel about it. We do this because when our emotions come into play, and they do, we're people, we all have emotions. When they come into play, when we are listening, we don't always hear the entire message. We might hear part of it, or we might hear what we think somebody is saying because our emotions kind of cloud our listening. So leave your emotions at the door. We want to hear the full message and then have a conversation about it. Listening is so important. And, you know, listening, as we know, touching back to conflict for a second, listening is critical to resolving conflict as well. So listening, we also want to listen not just to what's happening in the room and the people that we're talking to, but again, to that bigger picture outside world as well. Listening is also a way to get feedback. And I'm going to take a quick pulse on feedback while I talk about it. How do you get your feedback, right? Several different ways. I've mentioned some of them here, right? Body language, tone of voice, words, reading between the lines. Sometimes we do that. We come out of a conversation and we say, gee, I'm not really sure how that went. I think they're going to offer me the job because it seemed to go well, but they didn't say they were offering me the job. So I'm just going to take a guess and think that they are, right? That's reading between the lines. We don't necessarily want to do that. And also, if you choose other, please let us know in the chat what other means. Feedback is so important. Feedback is two-way. Gretchen, how are we doing?
Doing well. We've got a few more people that could vote, and I think
Okay.
probably thinking about it. And I don't have anything in the chat box for the other.
Okay, that's all right. Totally fine. Totally fine. You know, feedback takes practice. There is a lot to feedback that we need to be, you know, that we want to think about. And I'm gonna touch base on this. Gretchen, are we ready to close the poll?
Sure will. And there is, under the other, responses
Yes.
and time responses.
Ah, okay, excellent. Yes, thank you.
Excuse me.
Okay, so all excellent answers and great ways to get feedback. Okay, when we look for feedback, let's say you want to ask for feedback. Okay, there's a couple ways to do this. Number one, figure out who you want to ask for feedback, and this should be someone that you are comfortable with and someone who knows you and knows your work so that they can give appropriate feedback to you. Could be a colleague or a teammate, could be, you know, your boss or a trusted leader, your mentor. You might want to do a 360 where you would get feedback from your volunteers. That's a bit more of a time-consuming process, but certainly well worthwhile if you choose to go that route. At the same time that you are asking someone to give you feedback, we want to be sure that we let them know that we are ready, willing, and able to receive that feedback. Feedback Feedback is not criticism, it's a critique. And there's a big difference. Feedback is not mean-spirited. Feedback is not meant to hurt feelings or to make you feel less than. Feedback is designed to help you understand how you are perceived and also how you can address certain situations. So feedback is good, and we need to let the people we are asking for feedback know that, hey, I'm asking you for this feedback. I really want to learn and grow, and demonstrate that you're going to act on it. Once you do have a feedback session with somebody, always we want to follow up and thank them for the feedback and let them know how you used the information they gave you. Why is that important? We're closing that loop, right? And it's important because to keep that relationship strong, we want to be sure that they feel that they're valued, their opinion and their thoughts were valued, but also that their time is valuable. So we want to make sure we let them know that. We are talking about communicating, collaborating, strategizing, all within, as I said before, that function of the team. So for just a moment, let's talk about leading a team. You can lead a team from the forefront, or you can lead a team from within. And how do you lead a team from within? That means you're not the leader of the team. You can still motivate. You can inspire your teammates. How? By, number one, bringing your work ethic full on every day to that team. Every time you have a meeting, every time you approach an assignment, every time you work on something together to collaborate, you are there, you are present in the moment, fully functioning and focused. At the same time, you can also help support your colleagues. You check in with them, say, hey, how's it going? You know, here's an example. I know that we have a deadline of tomorrow afternoon, and John, I see that you are swamped today trying to do 5 different things on deadlines. What can I do to help? So in that example, what have we done? Well, first of all, we use the word we, right? John, we have a deadline. We're on the same team. 2, we're being observant. We're checking in on our colleague. I see that you have 5 different things you are working on and you are on deadlines. And 3, we're offering to help. How can I support you? How can I help, right? This is a great way to motivate and inspire your colleagues. Think of it this way. Think of rowing, okay? We have 8 people in a boat. The boat is steered by the coxswain, and steered and directed by the coxswain. The coxswain is the only person in the boat actually who faces forward. Everyone else faces backward. Each one of those people who are facing backward are accomplished athletes on their own. They have probably won many, many accolades and trophies and awards. But you know what? They leave them all on the shore when they get in the boat. They come to the boat because they know if they bring their egos with them, if they bring their I'm going to be an individual and do what I want attitude, that the team will not move smoothly through the water. Their paddles on their oars will not go in and out at the same pace. Their pacing of the boat will not be the same, and they won't achieve their end goal, which is, of course, to win the race. So teaming, you can lead a team from the forefront as team leader, as director, right? You can also lead from within. Great leaders do both. At the same time, we're talking about stepping up, right? And putting yourself out there and boosting visibility and presence. I do want to bring up the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome, or the imposter phenomenon. You know, you may be feeling that, hey, I'm not equal to the people on the team. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable stepping up in this way. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. It was actually discovered in the late 1970s, I think it was 1978, by 2 graduate students who were studying females, and they found that these were high achieving people. They found that they were not comfortable accepting accolades for their work. Now, the American Psychological Association kind of defines the imposter syndrome, or the imposter phenomenon, as number 1, people who suffer from this attribute their work and their successes to luck. Well, that was just lucky thing that we did so well, right? Or they just are not, comfortable, and they are afraid that they will be unmasked and thought of as a fraud. It's a real thing. I have worked with countless people across genders, across age brackets, across, roles, across organizations and across sectors who suffer from this. The good news is that it can be overcome. And how do we overcome this? We overcome it by being comfortable with ourselves. Here's a great way to do it. Whip out your resume. Take a look at it. Look at the achievements that you have had in your career. Think of all the successes you have had so far in order to get to where you are. We all need reminding because sometimes things don't go well, and once in a while we can start to slide down this slippery slope, and we don't want to. So we always want to stay positive and focused. So let's sum everything up. What we want to do is we want to think about what we're trying to say, right? So we start by building the foundation with those strong relationships, open communication, open dialogue between ourselves, our colleagues, our bosses, our leaders. And then we want to build on that. And when you do that, after you've laid that foundation, then you're in a position to advocate successfully and professionally for your people, as well as for your program. At the same time you're doing that, you are gaining recognition and prominence as well, because you are actually the one who is in the spotlight promoting your team, okay? So make yourself heard, keep communicating, and always be thinking about the word yes. Your leadership wants to say yes, but we have to give them a reason. So we do this by having structured plans. We do this by providing them with the data they need to make well-informed decisions. And we do this by collaborating successfully on teams and moving our teams, our volunteers, forward in the most positive possible way. Before I close, I would like to just take a moment and mention 2 words, and those 2 words are thank you. Especially now, because everything is so crazy in our world, we don't often say thank you enough. I always recommend to say thank you 7 times in 7 different ways to our volunteers, but many times we also forget to thank those who are leading us, those who motivate us, those who guide us and support us, those who are in the trenches. That's all of you, our volunteer engagement professionals. You are the glue that holds your organizations together, especially right now. And you all are doing such amazing work. And oftentimes we don't tell you that enough. So on behalf of your volunteers, on behalf of your colleagues, your organizations, and your communities, even the larger community, the global community, I want to thank each and every one of you for all that you are doing for your people, for your programs, and for your organizations. You are so appreciated, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you. Thank you very much for all that you do. Okay, now it's time for Q&A. And Angela, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that you can have the control back.
Okay, thank you so much. That was, as somebody just put in the chat box, chock full.
Oh
Thank
boy.
you so much. You sped through so much information. It was absolutely fabulous. So thank you. We are ready to take some questions. We'll be monitoring the chat box, so please put those in there. Add your questions. Gretchen will be looking at those and sharing those questions with us. What questions do we have? Just to get started, what happened? There's so many different questions, right? What happens if I saw the rowboat, right? What happens if you're on a team and you feel like you're being a collaborator, you're trying to offer help, you're being that person, and nobody else is stepping up?
Okay, so you feel like you're pulling all the weight?
There you go.
Okay, so yeah, that happens a lot, right? We've all been there and we know what it feels like. It's not a good feeling because we end up feeling overstressed, overworked, and underappreciated. Really what's happening is there's probably not enough communication so that your teammates understand how they can help, how they can support whatever it is that you are doing, and really be on board with you. So a great thing to do is sit down with everyone and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's our project. Here's what we need to do. And literally, I like to break it down into steps. I like to make bite-sized pieces so that everyone can have a piece of that pie. Our pie is the project, right? Everyone can have a piece of it. Everyone can have some ownership into it. And that way, everybody can move forward at the same time. If everybody's waiting for someone else to do something, that's when we end up with one person who's willing to move forward and nobody else. So it can be a tricky situation, but if you open up the communication and sit down and really strategize about the best way to approach this assignment, you can move forward and you can bring your team right along with you.
That's great. There is a question, how to navigate around the, we don't do that in our location or station.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one, right? Because we're talking about the cultures. The culture of one team or one, let's say you have an organization and you have different sites, okay? And one site focuses on one thing and the other site doesn't. Let's talk about let's talk about masks, PPE, which I know is a dicey subject, but at one site we have to wear the mask from the minute we get out of the car and head into the door. At the other site, we have to wear masks. Everybody has to wear masks, but we're just a little bit more laid back about it. You can put your mask on when you come through the door. That's a small thing, but a very big difference. So when one site has a certain set of rules and the other site is different, when somebody crosses over, that's a culture clash. And that's when somebody gets taken aback and surprised and not sure of how they should react. The reaction that they have may be negative. It may be, whoa, this is not okay. It may be, oh, well, we're a little bit more relaxed here. Great that I can breathe fresh air just a little longer before I put my mask on, right? So the best way to address this, again, I'll come back to it, is communication. When somebody comes over to your team, when somebody comes over to your site, let them know what to expect ahead of time. Let them know how the meetings are run. Let them know how the presentation is supposed to go, right? Let them know if this is a brainstorming session so they don't get caught off guard and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was going to be asked for my opinion. So communication can really go a long way toward helping address all of that.
Another angle to look at that potentially, and I guess the question would be, what I ran into when I first came to the blood bank 2 years ago, we don't have high school students come volunteer here. We just don't do that.
Okay.
So what if there's a situation where it's like, we just don't do blank, fill in the blank, and yet as a volunteer person, you're collaborating, you're like, why can't we do that?
Well, I think you just hit on it. The first question I would ask is why? Why don't we do that? There's obviously a reason. And let's find out what that reason is. If the reason is because this is how we've always done it, and we've never had high schoolers help us with the blood bank, then maybe we look at that and we say, well, what are the capabilities of high schoolers? Are they able to help us? Is it legal for them to help us? Are there things that they could do to help support the blood bank? Can they run blood drives? What can they do to help support? And we find them a role. And, this is a great way to incorporate something new. If the answer is something, we don't do this because it is, there's a regulation that says we can't of some sort. Okay, that's a definitive answer, right?
Right.
So
right. Absolutely.
I would say always start with the why and see if you can find out why we're doing it that way or why we are not looking at other options. Then when you suggest other options, number one, you've got more ground to stand on because you can say, well, here's a new idea. Let's try and think out of the box. And you're also aware of the history of the situation.
That's great. For somebody who maybe hasn't thought about getting a voice, making a voice, getting to the table, or have thought about it, but just now with your presentation, we'll be able to take some steps towards that. what does a timeline look for something like that? Obviously, it's a little different for everyone, but what does that look like? I'm such a get it done now person. Realistically, what does that look like?
That's an interesting question. You know, you can't go from 0 to 60 instantaneously. It's when you are looking to engage, looking to get your voice out there, it takes time. We have to be patient. I always suggest starting small. Take small steps, see how they go. This is a great way, again, to feel out sort of the culture of the team that you're looking for, or the organization if you're new. If you are looking to boost your presence, as we know, say, for example, online with social media, things move very quickly. So we want to make sure we're staying on top of it, right? I can't give you a definitive timeline because I think for each person it will be different depending on the end goals, depending on, you know, how the comfort level of how quickly and comfortably you are willing to move forward. And again, it also depends on that organization that you are in, the culture of, as I said, your team, or the culture of your larger organization. We don't want to just barrel through the door and say, here I am, you know,
That's right.
if that's not how this group operates. So we need to check it out first and make sure, and then you can strategically make a plan. Absolutely. And I would make a plan. If you want to boost your presence, start small. Say maybe I'll write a blog piece for the organization blog this month, and maybe I will post on social media, but I'll post maybe twice a week at first, see how it goes, right? And move forward with that. Always building out your networks, connecting with people everywhere you go is always a great way to help you move forward as well, especially externally as you build your networks, because everyone's connected to somebody else at least 3 times over.
Karen, I've got
Absolutely.
a quick question before we start to wrap
Sure.
up.
Okay.
And it is, what do you do when you ask for feedback and you don't get any, and you suspect it's because people are afraid to say anything negative?
Excellent question, Gretchen. Yeah, so this goes back to when you ask for feedback, let them know that you are willing to accept it. Good, bad, or ugly, that's the phrase I use when I ask for feedback. Please let me know how I did. Good, bad, or ugly, I want to know because I'm looking to learn and grow from this experience. And I really will take it, you know, I'll take your information to heart. I will not take it personally, but I really feel that you could provide some valuable information to me. And, you know, it's helping that other person find the comfort level of, okay, Karen really does want my feedback. Even though I'm not going to say everything was hunky-dory, she's okay with that. And that she really does want to learn and grow from it. So you have to reassure, you have to put it out there from the get-go that, yes, I understand feedback may not be exactly what I want to hear, but I'm willing to listen. And I'd like you to talk me through what you're thinking.
That is fabulous. Gretchen, are there more questions?
I think we're good.
Okay, fabulous. Then let's move to the next slide. Karen, thank you. Amazing presentation. So much information. I was jotting some things down, so I am anxious to implement some of these and actually then put you on the calendar for January. So I'm really excited to see you again and gain some more insights and see how far I've come along. This will be a good actual test along the way and a good accountability. So we'll see. A couple announcements just to make sure for everybody here. Be sure to join in. The Alive member newsletter is issued monthly. Be sure to check that out. Opportunities to present for the Academy in 2021. Wonderful place to learn, to grow, to challenge yourself, to network. Committee positions are open to volunteers on a rolling basis, which means you are the volunteer in this case. And board elections are now in progress. A live annual meeting is forthcoming November 18th at 2 o'clock. Of course, all of this is on the website, so be sure to check that out. And also upcoming December 4th, Modern Trends in Volunteer Engagement, looking back at 2020. Ooh, will be nice to be looking backwards at that one, right? And then looking forward to 2021 with Kelly Crawford, January 13th. Karen, again, we'll be happy to have you back for that. March 3rd is navigating difficult situations. Nobody has those, right? All the time. May 12th, advocacy, saying no to the wrong things so that we can say yes to the right things. So that will be a wonderful, all of these are wonderful presentations. So again, check out the website, volunteeralive.org. So thank you so much. If there's nothing else, I think we're going to wrap up. Gretchen, do you have anything?
No, thank you so much, Karen. Great presentation. And Angela, thank you for hosting, and everybody have a good rest of the week.
Thanks, Gretchen. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. So long.